why is that drug being used? It's being used for type 2 diabetes. So maybe we should go after the lifestyle that would correct type 2 diabetes.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome to another episode of Beckoning Brilliance. I'm your host, Becca, and today we have my friend Anne back to talk about nutrition. This episode is going to make you want to go through all your cabinets and throw everything away immediately. It's also going to make you question everything you do in your life. So buckle up because we're going to get the tea about what it means to actually be healthy. We're going to talk about Ozempic. We talk about wheat. We talk about different diets. We talk about parasites. We truly cover everything. Also, before I forget, there were some audio issues on her end. I tried as hard as I could to make it sound more clear. So even though the quality isn't great, just hang in there. The information is priceless. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back.
I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to talk about what I do for a living that is near and dear to my heart. You know, nutrition is by far my starting block and the thing that I think everybody should start with.
Mm-hmm. I think most people don't even know where to start with nutrition. There's so much conflicting information.
100%. There is so much conflicting information, and I think we get lost in the weeds because there is a scale. Some people are trying to find the quick fix to look a certain way, to be a certain way, and other people are really trying to find out, how can I be the healthiest individual that I can be? How can I optimize my DNA so that I can have the healthiest, most productive, enjoyable life? Yes, we want to lengthen our telomeres so that we can lengthen our lifespan. But more important than lengthening our lifespan is having a life that feels good, the whole entire time that we're living it. And that is what I'm after for most people.
So when it comes to living your best life and also like eating healthy, what does that mean to you? Like, where would someone even begin with that?
Depends on where they're at, right? Depends on where they're at. So we're looking at that. When you're coming in to see me, I'm taking a look at where you're eating now. But if you're asking, like, in general, where should a person start that's on a health journey? With real food. Let's go with real food. And let's look at all the places that we're not eating real food. And most people are not completely honest with this. They have a cupboard full of things that are in packages. If it's in a package, not real food. So we want to take a look at, we have such a rising epidemic of like type 2 diabetes and heart disease and cancer in this nation. So we really want to take a look at how the food is impacting that. And for me, one of the top things that I want to look at is how we're able to handle glucose, like what our glucose stabilization is, how we're able to handle what our blood sugar regulation is. And most people's is out of control. So if we were just to take a look at like one thing, that would be where I'd want to start. Interestingly enough, tying this into what we talked about last time, emotional regulation, in my opinion, and a lot of people agree with this, nobody should go on antidepressants until they are looking at glucose regulation and how they're able to handle their blood sugar in the day, because that's going to greatly affect mood. And most people don't know that. Well, first I'll start here. Most people know that sugar impacts our blood sugar regulation. That just makes sense, right? And a lot of people are familiar with the glycemic index. And it's so funny to me because people will immediately look, oh, well, this fruit or this fruit is high, or this vegetable is high on the glycemic index. Let's toss those out. But they're not tossing out the fake foods. So in the number one, what I consider fake food is wheat. That's the number one food that I consider a fake food. Because if we're looking at the history and science of it, in the 50s, two scientists basically genetically modified wheat so that it would be a higher yield grain. So it would be a higher yield for the wheat. And when they did that, they didn't look at the impact it was going to have on the body, but it altered the starch. And so now by the 70s, everything, every cake, every cookie, every cracker, every pizza, every goldfish is made out of this wheat. And interestingly enough, on the glycemic index, because the wheat has been altered, it is higher than a teaspoon of sugar. It's higher. So if you're going to eat straight sugar or candy, that is a lower glycemic index than wheat. And so that's something people aren't looking at because, if you're looking at even parents with children, they're like, no, don't have candy, but here have these goldfish or here have these crackers. And they're shooting their blood sugar way up and then dropping. So then we have mood imbalance. We have a child or an adult that is then cranky, right? So starting with food, first and foremost, in my opinion, looking at the science and working with people for over the past 30 years, refined sugar, fake food, get rid of it. Wheat, get rid of it. And then the third one is dairy. Some people are going to handle dairy better than others. But again, that dairy is raising our blood sugar in a way that, for the most part, we're not able to handle. And how it's doing that is it's been altered, right? We're not getting it straight from the cow. And first of all, we know that cow's milk is for cow babies. And if baby cows drank the milk that we have in the stores, they get sick and die because we have now altered it. So then humans take this in and it's a damaged protein. So now we have the body not recognizing it, and it actually starts to attack the pancreatic cells, the beta cells, and we have blood sugar irregulation. So that's a lot of information, but basically refined sugar, wheat, and dairy. And then we're so much healthier, but I do like to focus on what we should increase and what we can now include. Yeah, more water, and let's add some real salt to that water so that the water can get into the cells. Most people really need to increase their salt intake, real salt, not white table salt. So we want a solar air dried, ground with ceramic salt to really help the water get into the cells and to help do a myriad of functions in the body. A lot of times we think we need to eat food and because we'll get shaky or we will start to feel, not quite ourselves. And we think, oh, I need to eat food. Possibly, most likely, you need to have water with salt. Even if you just put the salt on your tongue, drink the water, fantastic. That's going to help immensely. So we have removing some things, adding water and salt, eating real food, real fruits, real vegetables, real grass-fed meats. And then we get into some conversation about, is it better to be grain-free? Is it better to be vegan? There's a whole bunch of information there. We can get into that if you want, but that is a different conversation.
I didn't know that about the adding salt to the water, how that actually helps to get into the cells. I just thought it was for upping your minerals. So I learned something new.
Well, it is, but so it's an interesting thing. So we started the conversation a little bit, or I did, talking about blood sugar regulation. And when we're eating, right, we eat so we can get energy from the food, so that our body can get the energy from the food, so we can go and do all of the things in our daily life. But the thing is, so when we eat food, the glucose comes out of the food and goes into the cell, and we want to be able to use our insulin to help you utilize that, but we can't actually get it unless we have enough water and salt. And most people don't. Most people are dehydrated. Most people are starting their day with caffeine, and that's dehydrating them further. So if I went on for like a fourth thing, like, get rid of the refined sugar, get rid of the wheat, get rid of the dairy, get rid of the caffeine. And that's where I lose people. They're like, no. That's why it's fourth, not number one. And if you're going to use caffeine, let's use that a little bit later in the day, not too late, but let's not do it within that first hour of waking up, because it just is really hard on the adrenals. It's really hard it actually starts to release glucose from the cells, so it starts to raise your blood sugar.
That's fine.
There's a lot of different things there.
I don't drink coffee, so I'm good, but I feel like most people are probably just turned this off. They're like, no.
Oh, I hate her. Yeah. Nope. Well, I mean, that's not, and then it's not a cut and dry, like if you drink coffee, then I can't help you. Obviously not. It's just, if you're asking what are some things that you can do, those are some things that you can do to help you right away before you'd ever come and see somebody like me.
So I've been gluten-free for a couple of years now, thanks to you helping me
Excellent.
out. And I think I wavered with paleo for a while, and I remember I would eat paleo during the week, and then I would have like a cheat day on the weekends. And I just started noticing over time that I felt better. So I'm like, let's just see how long I can do it for. And I remember the first time I slipped up or not even slipped up, but I was like, I'm just going to have that bread, right? I had it, and then all of a sudden I felt like, when you get your period and you feel a little crazy and you just like kind of feel like you're not in control of your emotions, it was like instant. And I remember messaging you, and you were like, yeah, wheat is linked to depression. And seeing as how I have dealt with that in the past, I was like, you know what? I feel like that, if anything, really helped me to commit to becoming gluten free and not even, I don't even care. People give me shit about it all the time. They're like, oh, you're that girl. And I'm like, I don't care. It helps me to like feel more regulated. And I think a lot of people don't realize that connection with emotions and eating.
100%. Foods and moods. My sister, when we were growing up, was always like, write a book, foods
I was
and
going to,
moods,
that's so
because it
catchy.
makes sense, right? Foods and moods. And I think there might even be a book named that out there now. But what we eat directly affects our
Mhm.
mood. We as humans, what we take in is we take in substance and frequency. So what we're eating is so incredibly important. What else do we think is affecting how we are? Yes, our traumas, yes, all of our emotions, but when we are not balanced nutritionally, it becomes incredibly hard to balance ourselves emotionally because our blood sugar is going up and down and up and down, where we want it to be like a steady rise and a steady fall, right? Like we want to have think about that with our emotions, right? It's like, oh, okay, not exact same thing. And it's interesting that you said that you noticed it. So when people, there's a couple of things here. Just because I'm saying to remove the gluten, that doesn't mean go out and buy a whole bunch of gluten-free products, right? Because what was the first thing I said? Let's not do processed foods. Let's
Yeah.
eat real food, because those gluten-free foods can do the same thing. I just want to be really clarify that they can shoot the blood sugar up and then drop it. If you want to look at what to eat, we want to eat foods that are going to stabilize. We want to be like high fiber. We want to have good fats, which what are good fats? They're real fats in the form that, in my opinion, God made them. And we want to have protein. We want to have produce. Now, carbohydrates are not in themselves bad, but we can live without those. So we want to focus on the things that the body is necessary for life. And most people are focusing on the things that are not necessary for life and how can they fit them in and make everything okay. Well, it's going to depend on how regulated you are with your blood sugar and how dialed in and how much damage you've already done to your body by eating poorly in the past. The standard American diet, fad, it is so harmful to us. And it's what we're feeding our children. We're raising our children on fake foods, right? Like, what did I say in the beginning? Sugar, milk, and wheat. What are most kids eating as soon as they wake up in the morning?
Cereal.
A sugary cereal with milk,
Yep.
right? And then an hour later, their blood sugar's through the roof. And then an hour after that, boom, it's dropping. And then you're wondering why your child is having a wild roller coaster of emotions that they can't seem to regulate. And we're asking them to do something that we couldn't do. So I love that you saw the correlation that quickly. You were very dialed in with what you were eating, so you could. It's more challenging for people when their diet is already a little bit out of control to notice. I will have people say, oh, I eliminated wheat and I eliminated dairy for a stretch of time and I saw no difference. I'm like, you're not really being honest, because there's no way. There's just no way. So I want to look at what did you replace it with? Did you replace it with fake foods? That's another conversation for those individuals.
Even when I'm doing skincare and someone is coming to me and they're having breakouts, I always ask, like, if I know that they're doing their routine, if I know that they're,
Yeah.
doing everything right, I'm like, okay, so what does your diet look like? And they'll say, well, I don't eat gluten, I don't eat dairy. And I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure about that? So that makes sense. I never thought about
Just a little cheese.
yeah, I never thought about that as far as like, okay, what are you substituting then? Because it can also have that same effect.
Yeah. Because what you're eating and when you're eating it is just as important as what you have removed. Like I do, and I still recommend pasture butter, because it can be very good for our bodies. It can be very good for our bladders, actually. So pasture butter has very little lactose in it. And if somebody's going to eat cheese, then I'm going to recommend an organic aged cheese. Most people will come in and they're like, no, I don't eat dairy. And I'm like, huh, interesting. Because there are certain cues that I can look at that tell me if a person probably is eating dairy. And they're like, oh, well, and I'll question them more. Oh, well, maybe a little cheese. But like, how many times are we having that little bit of cheese, And how sensitive is your body to it? And then we have people that are like, yeah, but I take lactate pills. It's like, okay, so you're eating something that gives you a response. The body's telling you, hey, I can't digest this protein. And now we're going to give it a pill that is going to cover up the symptom we get from eating the pill. From eating the cheese or the dairy. And what do we think we're doing damage wise to our system? And I see it, especially with kids that have then mood imbalances and or just a lot of trouble with their energy, because they're trying to digest this food that their body's like, hey, I can't have this. I can't digest this. And then we're covering it up. Lactate.
When you said that there are certain signs that you can see if someone is eating dairy, what are those signs?
Well, specifically to talk about what you were saying, right through this area of the face is what I'm going to usually see puffiness, especially right here. If there's any breakouts through that area of the face.
She's pointing at her cheeks, by the way. For people that are just listening, I was going to say, you're pointing at your cheeks.
Oh, okay. I'm pointing at my cheeks. Yeah. So if there is excess puffiness here on the cheek or breakouts across the cheek, that's total system of the body, and that's usually where we're going to see that. Also, if the person's carrying a little extra weight under the chin or on the upper arms, that's usually where we're going to see that. Now, that doesn't mean that that's only correlated to that, but if I know the person and I know how they typically look when they're eating most optimally, and then I see them again, it becomes very obvious. And or if they're having different issues with digestion, either sluggishness and or the opposite of sluggishness, if they're unable, if food's just running through them, typically a sign of dairy imbalance. So it becomes really important for us to take a look at what we're actually ingesting on a daily basis.
So when you talk about someone coming in to see you and you're talking about nutrition, are you only, I know what you do for a living, but not everyone does. So are you only looking at diet with people? Are you giving people a diet plan? Or are you working with them in a different way nutritionally?
We're doing everything. So the way in which I work is first and foremost what we're putting in the body. So I work with nutrition and I work with something called BDORT. So it's bi-digital O-ring testing. It is patented. So I'm testing through the alarm points as defined by traditional Chinese medicine, the acupoints of the body. And when I'm testing through those acupoints of the body, we're bringing the body towards balance, towards 0 point. And we're doing this with different nutrition. And so we're seeing where the body would like to take something. When I'm working with diet, that is the first and foremost thing that we need to work with. By the time somebody has come to see me, they've usually been to a lot of other people. They've usually taken in a lot of other information. For the most part, most of my clients, by the time they've come to see me, have a decent diet. Yes, I have some people that do not, but by the time they've come to see me, they've been down a lot of other avenues and have decent diets. Where we will dial it in though, we will start to see, if somebody's having trouble losing weight, we're going to take a look at their blood sugar. We're going to take a look at their hormones. So how I work is through the bi-digital O-ring testing. And also I work through different programs and algorithms to read the energy of the body. Also through blood tests, blood tests are amazing. We're doing all of that and we're balancing the organ and gland systems with the nutrition. And we're working on specific programs. Diet-wise, it depends on what's going on with the body at the time and what needs to shift. Different people work better with different things. Meaning for some people, intermittent fasting, having an 8-hour eating window is amazing. It's going to help them regulate their blood sugar. It is going to give them so many benefits. For other people, that's not going to work because of mood and different imbalances. So, with hormones, typically that's more towards women. So I work in the full spectrum of food, nutritional programs to help balance the body, to help detox, to help balance the pH, to balance the hormones, and then rejuvenate. Like we can't rejuvenate a system that needs to be cleaned up or balanced.
True.
I also work, as you know, emotionally, and then with, like I stated, the energy of the home with vascular. So we're looking at all aspects that come together to help give us the most optimal healthy life.
That's interesting you say that about intermittent fasting, for example, because I feel like that's kind of a hot topic. And usually when something is really popular, it's like everyone's like, yes, this is going to be the key. This is going to unlock my success and help me lose weight and look young and feel great. And then people will try it and they're like, well, shit, this doesn't work for me. And so it's like you can see how people kind of like spiral out. So is there a way for people to, well, I suppose if they just try it out themselves, they'll see it doesn't work for them. But so you're saying that you can actually test and see if like a certain program like that will work?
Correct. And that's what we're doing. We're testing to see what is optimal for the individual at that time. Because what's optimal for you today might not be what's optimal for you in a month or 2 months. So it becomes important when I'm working with a client on a specific thing that they come in typically every 4 to 6 weeks, because we're rotating through different programs and going through different systems that their body wants to do at the time. And then once that situation is resolved, then we space out appointments too much longer. But at first, and until the situation is resolved, I do need to see people quite frequently. For intermittent fasting specifically, I would say I would want to look at how they're actually doing it, because people are not always honest with themselves, and or they don't even know that they're not being fully honest with themselves. Meaning, what is intermittent fasting? All the literature, if we're looking at all the studies, an 8 hour window is pretty much optimal for most people so that they can live the most normal life and help their circadian rhythms and actually the rhythms of the body be really locked in. When we're fluctuating with it, say we're intermittent fasting all week and then on the weekend we don't, it's almost like we're jet lagging the body. The body doesn't know what's happening. Why are you starting eating at 7 or 10 when you normally start eating at noon? The body's like, what are you doing? The body likes consistency, especially with the time we wake up and the time we go to bed and with the times we eat. So those windows of feeding become really important. Most people that intermittent fast that find that it doesn't work for them, I'm going to want to go through some things with them first. Like, are they really on the fast in the morning and or for a few hours before they go to bed? Or are they, without knowing it, really sabotaging themselves? So what we're trying to do is extend that fasting time when we're sleeping. We're trying to extend it in the morning for a while so that we can regulate our blood sugar, so that we can detox, so that we can get a myriad of health benefits. It depends on what the person's taking in the morning. Is the person taking in some kind of pre-workout? Anything that even raises the blood sugar a little bit is going to annihilate that fast. It's over. So we can have things like water, sparkling water, tea, black coffee, if the person's going to have black coffee, which I just said I wouldn't really suggest. But if they're going to do it, okay, go ahead. But if they have anything that has even any effect on the blood sugar, then what's going to happen is they're out of the fast. And so somebody say they have a pre-workout before they go and work out for the day. Typically, a lot of those are going to have 1 gram of sugar. And so they're out of the fast and they don't even realize it. They're like, no, this is just this thing that I take. When people, after they eat dinner at night, they might have a glass of wine. That glass of wine definitely counts as affecting our blood sugar. Or they might just extend that window a little bit longer. So we really have to look at how honest we're being with ourselves and what we're doing there. Now, for some people, their mood is so sensitive to what they eat that it's not good for them at that time. And also, intermittent fasting isn't like a make it or break it. There are many other things we can do. However, for some people, it works beautifully. So we have to prove it to ourselves, right? We have to prove the theory and actually do the thing, and then we have to track it. We have to track the data.
Yeah. So I know you also do nutritional supplements as well. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I do whole food nutritional supplementation only. I do not like to use synthetic supplementation. The body doesn't recognize it. And I only work with things that have no excipient. So if you turn over your supplement bottle and it says magnesium stearate, I don't want to give it to anybody. Like things like silicone dioxide, magnesium stearate is the largest one. And these are excipients. So these are things that they're using to get, or fillers, they're using to get the product or the nutrition into the cap. Now, it's an inexpensive way to do that. So a lot of people, most companies do that. And then they'll tell you, no, it's not a big deal. There are even, so funny to me, there are even a lot of companies have now taken, if somebody tells you magnesium stearate is not good, it's because they're trying to sell you their product. Well, yes, and you're trying to sell your product by saying it's okay. So what does it do? It is an excipient, and the energy of that excipient is going to stay in the cell. So what happens is when you're nutritionally deficient, which most people are, your cell will open up to any nutrition. I don't even care if it's junk nutrition from like the corner drugstore. It will open up to it. If it's synthetic, it wants it. it doesn't care what it is as long as you're giving it something. And then when you do that, those excipients, they stay in the cell and they're damaging it over time. So if you're taking something every day and it has something that is damaging in it, does it not make sense that over time it's going to completely damage your body? So we're looking at the carcinogenic effects of these things. I want to give some people things that are never going to hurt them and in no way could. That's where we start. We don't start with something that's kind of good and then kind of could hurt you a little bit as well. So only whole food nutrition. I work with a few different things, and my husband and I have our own line as well. So we're bringing people things that are going to turn the energy of the body on. So interesting that you were asking about this. So if I take something that has magnesium stearate or another excipient in it or another toxic, what I would call tag along, it might turn the organ or gland system on, right? Because what did I just say? Hey, the cells are deficient. They will open up to anything that you're going to give them. But now if I take that same substance and I energetically test it against the kidney energy, it's usually going to knock it right off. So we don't want to give something to the body that turns one system on, but another system off, right? We want to give something that helps the whole body resonate at a higher level.
That's so interesting. So basically, like all the stuff that GNC is trash is what you're saying? Just kidding.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
I wouldn't choose to take it, and I wouldn't choose to give it to anybody. No, I was going to say, well, it's interesting because there are a lot of people out there that want to be healthier, right? And what I find is there's a big push to do it on your own, which is great. We should be our own physicians. We should be seeing how things affect our body. The issue with it is that we have a lot of people taking a lot of stuff that when I just take them off of it, they're doing better because it's knocking that kidney energy off. Like I said, it's actually their body has to work too hard to try and use the little bit of something good that might be in it. And how does that work? Well, a lot of nutritional supplements, if they're using high heat or high pressure, so anything that makes itself into a chewable, they're using high pressure, high heat. So you might even be starting with something that was a high quality nutrient. And now we're basically making it into cat food or dog food. Like we're using high pressure, high heat, and we're taking it into something that's like kibble. And so our body doesn't recognize it. It's like, why did you do that to it? Yeah. So we're always wanting to start with the actual real diet, what you're really taking in, and then give it whole food nutrition to help nourish. And then we're going to talk about things that detox. And detox is where I see a lot of people doing a lot of different things out there that is wild.
I have friends that, God, it was like years ago. They would do this I think it was like a parasite cleanse or like a colon cleanse. And I remember there was like this handout thing and they're like, look at this. And it was just like, I don't even want to explain it because it's so disgusting. But I was like, is this good for you?
Well, okay, exactly. So we have so many people out there that want to be healthier. Awesome. I'm so for it. I'm here for that conversation. But what I see is a lot of people buying stuff on Instagram, buying stuff that's just marketed like boom, 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 boom. We're hit with an onslaught of information and products that they start to detox. And they're doing it, like I said, in this way that is just incredibly wild and unsupported. So first and foremost, I would never detox with somebody that also wasn't going to support the system. So if we're working on detoxing an organ or gland system, you have to first nourish that organ or gland system. It has to feel safe because if our body is not nourished, it's not an excreter. Okay, so what does that mean? It means if we're not nourished and we try to detox, the body might liberate some of the toxins into the bloodstream, but we're just going to recirculate them and we're going to feel really sick. And we're at best, making ourselves not feel so great. And at worst, we're doing damage. So we have to look at how the hierarchy of how the body detoxes the pathways. We're looking at the kidneys, we're looking at the liver, and we're looking at the intestines. We have the lymphatic system. Everything has to be up to par before we're going to bring in certain things to detox. Now, we have where people are getting these dopamine hits because they're going out and they're buying these products and they're like, oh, I'm going to do a parasite cleanse. Okay, maybe we should understand how to fully do that. It's not just, hey, I bought this bottle of this and now I'm going to get rid of all the worms. That is ludicrous. And what I've seen from other practitioners, and I don't want to talk bad about any practitioners, but some people may not have just the training and or haven't seen enough people to really know what they're doing with parasites. That's actually how I started, and I'll get into that story about my son. That's how I started on the line that I'm on, that became a QRA practitioner. But what I see is they just want to buy something, like you said, like your friends, and they want to see worms come out of them and they want to call it a day. Wow, that's not how it works. So
Teach us.
you can have, and there's not just one type of parasite you have. So, hey, I'm going to take this and now everything's better. You can have them, you can have nanoparasites, you can have them in your power chain, you can have them in the intestines, you can have them all over the place. And we want to work very specifically with the specific dose that your body's asking for, with the energetic system that your energetic system is asking for. And we also have to work. I was going to say that the biggest thing I see is they're not dilating their bile ducts to help the parasites in the eggs come out. So if you're not dilating your bile ducts, you can be in pain, you can feel really sick, and you're not going to fully do the job. So you're just going to reinfest as soon as those eggs hatch. So you're on a constant cycle.
I'm having PTSD
right
now. I'm having flashbacks to when I did the parasite cleanse.
Right. So, because there's so much to it. It is gross, but it's also like, hey, there's a reason why my body is doing this thing and not feeling well, and there are solutions for it. So, and I'm super grateful for that. When you have different types of parasites, depending on where they are in your body and what's going on, you do have to dilate the bile ducts. You do have to use things like castor oil packs to help hatch the eggs. You do have to have your pH up to a certain level to drive them, some types, to the intestines so that they can eat their last meal and leave the body. If somebody doesn't understand what they're doing, and I see a lot of this with one particular brand that I'm not going to name, there's a lot of practitioners out there using a specific brand where they're keeping people on antiparasitics for like 6 months to a year at a time. That is ludicrous. That is not how that works. And they're doing that because they don't have accurate ways of testing, and because they're just putting everybody on the same program or something very similar, and just saying, okay, now just keep doing it until you don't see worms anymore. Really? That's our form of testing, just so you don't see worms anymore. And basically, they're just selling you a lot of products, and their product isn't necessarily the worst thing that I've seen in the world. It's just that we have groups of people. So what they'll be like, hey, we're all going to do a parasite cleanse. We're going to be in this group. We're going to have a Facebook group. We're all going to be on it. And like, we're going to have camaraderie, which I get. And that's awesome. It has to be specific to your body and your system, to what's going on. I also see it with a lot of people with ivermectin, and I'm not against ivermectin, but again, it's a drug and there are other things that we could do. The body always wants to work with whole food nutrition over a drug, optimally.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot going on there. And the story goes, how I came to do what I do is that my son, when he was about 8 years old, was having these wild skin rashes. And I was a nutritionist. My dad was a chiropractor, and both have a lot of different certifications underneath our belts. And we couldn't figure out what was going on. We knew there was something in the liver, but we didn't know exactly what it was. Finally, we found a QRA, and it was the marriage of everything that I had ever wanted. It was pristine nutrition. It was a testing system that was elegant and efficient and effective. It worked with the emotions, because everything starts as an emotion in the field. It worked with the home energy, and it worked with the diet. So it was everything all in one package. Boom, here you go. I was like, I'm in love, and I want to dive deeply into this. And so that sent me on a wild love affair with QRA, which I love to bring to my clients. And first and foremost, it is something that works with parasite cleansing, because my mentor, that's how he created this, how he came to do this, because he himself had a severe parasitic infection that was affecting his liver so much that they wanted to take his liver out. And he corrected that with the help of a woman who later became his wife. And so she had a lot of this information. She was also a chiropractor and acupuncturist. And when he went to see her after seeing 76, I believe it was, other holistic practitioners, who he said most of them were full of shit. And, we do find that, and not everybody is, but there is a lot of that out there, which gives holistic a really bad name. She helped him. And after she helped him, They had their love story, they fell in love and got married and created the system in which I'm able to bring to people. So it's near and dear to my heart.
I love that. Going back to like the parasite cleanse and like that dopamine hit when people are like, oh yeah, I'm doing something, this is like going to fix all my problems. I want to talk to you about Ozempic. That is like the hot topic
Okay.
with everyone. Everyone wants to lose weight by taking this pancreatic, I think it's pancreatic drug or something like that, insulin.
It is a drug for diabetics, for type 2 diabetics. And what do you think I'm going to say to
Well, I was going to say, after
that?
everything that you said, I'm like, this has got to be really horrendous to the body. Because even people, I follow this influencer and she talks a lot about plastic surgery and she's been very open about her using it and her weight loss. And the whole time I'm looking at her, I'm like, hey, you look good, but I just like crash diets or stuff like that where it works really, really rapidly and you get that instant
Yeah.
gratification. I'm like, that has got to be so bad for your body.
Yeah. How will I begin? The body wants real, actual food to become healthy. Now, if we start introducing drugs into the system, which if you're not even a type 2 diabetic, why are you doing this? You're doing this because I want quick weight loss, right? I want it right now. And if you need something to happen that fast, what does that sound like to you? To me, that sounds like an emotional imbalance, right? I can't delay my gratification because I need the pleasure right now. And isn't that what got us into the situation in the first place? Meaning we were unable, for whatever reason, to have the diet and the lifestyle that was going to give us the health that we wanted. So instead of going on a drug that is going to have this effect, wouldn't it, which eventually it's going to wear out the system, right? So Ozempic, we know, can make us, what are some of the side effects? It's just like headaches, nausea. It has been shown in studies to grow thyroid nodules. So we're going to risk growing a thyroid nodule because we want to lose 10 pounds ASAP. Like, we're really having to look at how do we want to live our lives and what kind of life do we want to live? Are we living the kind of life where I need the immediate gratification? If that's the case, then we really need to take a look at our emotional regulation. But I also understand it. I do understand. I struggled with my weight when I was younger, and I do understand that we want to look a certain way. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to look a certain way and to project a certain appearance. The issue becomes, are we willing to damage ourselves to do that? Because if you're taking a drug to do something, there's always going to be side effects, and there's going to be, anytime you bring something in, something else is going to have to balance it. So we're going to wear systems out. We don't want to wear our pancreas out. So meaning, what do I mean by that? So if we take it and we lose weight, when we stop taking it, what do we think is going to happen? We didn't change our lifestyle. We didn't change our health. We went on something that had an effect. And that's the thing with drugs, right? And why people become so impatient with lifestyle change and true health, because they're used to drugs, and drugs are awesome, right? Because what's a drug going to do? A drug is going to have an immediate effect, right? And that buys right into our immediate gratification hit. It's the same thing as I need a like on my Instagram right now so I can feel a dopamine hit. I don't want to wear systems out in the body, because I'm usually not, clients that come to see me are typically not going to be ones that are currently on something like Ozempic. What I'm usually going to see is somebody that's been on it, lost weight, gained the weight back, worn out their systems, become insulin resistant, and now maybe they actually are a type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic and going into where they may actually be prescribed that drug for that situation. So the thing is why is that drug being used? It's being used for type 2 diabetes. So maybe we should go after the lifestyle that would correct type 2 diabetes. And that's the same things that are going to correct our weight. And it's the thing I started with, right? Blood sugar regulation. Let's take a look at it. I'm not somebody that likes us to wear something electronic on our body. But hey, if you need to get a blood glucose monitor that's continuous and put it on the back of the arm for a month to see what's going on, I would much rather you do that so that you can see how your food is affecting you and how that's affecting your mood, how it's affecting your health. So I started the conversation with saying, we eat food and we get the glucose to go into the cell, that gives us our energy, we can do stuff. But we also store glycogen in the cell so that we can access it later for energy later. The thing is if we don't have enough water and salt, that energy gets stored in the fat cells, because the fat cells don't care if you have water or salt, and they don't need the insulin to get it in there. So when we are insulin resistant, because we've eaten a diet of high wheat, high processed sugars, lack of exercise, and we've created this issue in our body, then what's happening is the energy from the food is being stored in the fat cells instead of as glycogen that we could possibly access out of the cell and use. So it becomes harder to lose weight. So shouldn't we reverse the process and become more insulin sensitive? Okay. What are some ways in which we could become more insulin sensitive pretty rapidly? Hydration. Most people are chronically dehydrated. So hydrating with water and salt, maybe a squeeze of lemon in there, doing that all day, changing the things that we're putting into our mouth, looking at high fiber foods, high protein, good quality proteins, good fats, like I said. So instead of a lot of different oils, I would focus on coconut oil, like a high quality coconut oil to cook with, and a pasture butter to cook with. Maybe a little of olive oil on our salad, but I wouldn't cook with it. And I would stick with pretty much just fat for our good fats. You can have some nuts. You can eat the seeds, eat pumpkin seeds, eat sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds. Get the good fats out of it by eating the actual raw seeds. And when we're doing that, we're getting enough protein in our diet, enough fat, enough fiber, enough water and salt. What else do we do? Start exercising. If we're exercising in a very specific way, and there's not a lot of debate, but there's a little debate about this. Most people, they start doing some kind of HIIT exercise, high intensity interval training, meaning spiking the heart rate, then letting it come down and recover. We're going to see a lot more blood sugar regulation. But what I might do for HIIT might be very different than what you might do, might be very different what somebody just starting out might do. So if somebody's not very athletic, if they are working on their health or just starting, they could be doing it on an exercise bike, and their heart rate's going to go high. If they can't walk for a long time because they're just not that healthy yet, they could start on an exercise bike, going as fast as they can for 30 seconds and then recovering for a few minutes. Optimally, we want to get to where we could go all out for 30 seconds or a minute, and then recover for a minute. The faster you recover, the healthier you are. Some people, when they first start, they might do 10 seconds and have to recover for 10 minutes. But that's going to change rapidly. But why are we doing this? We're doing this to get that glycogen out of the cell, and so that we can actually feel much better and have better blood sugar regulation. Now, you wouldn't do this to such an extent that you create inflammation. You wouldn't go so far with it. You do probably 5 or 6 rounds of it. So the whole thing takes under 20 minutes. And it's really good to do in the morning in a fasted state. You have some people that are going to fight back against that, but the science and the literature is there that shows that this really does work. If your body can't handle it, we need to look at what's going on with your adrenals, what's going on with your pancreatic function. And then we start to balance that.
Talking about diabetes and just other health issues in general, even like maybe cancer and stuff like that, do you think that conditions like that, diseases like that, can be reversed with diet?
100%. 100%. In what I do, what I would say is that there is always hope to reverse just about anything. Depends on how much you're going to commit to wanting to work on these things, right? Where's your commitment level? Because if we're not committed, then everything's going to feel like a struggle and somebody's going to quit. People need to understand their pathways. They need to understand how different nutrients are working in their body. They need to work with somebody that is going to be able to walk them through this, because if somebody doesn't understand what they're doing, and this is what I do see in holistic a lot, meaning if I just hand you this, here, take this is going to make everything better, but you don't understand why you're taking it, and that's never fully explained, the person's going to quit, because they're not going to understand the trajectory and how long different things take, and how we're going to see things in subtle ways, because we're not taking drugs. So it's not going to be like this. It's not going to be a hammer. It's going to be slower. Specifically, let's look at heart disease. Heart disease is 100% reversible through diet and exercise. Cancer, I would say 70%. Why? Because the emotional component when we're specifically talking about cancer is much higher. And people get very confused when I say this or defensive. Because they'll say, well, so-and-so has cancer and they're a very loving person. I'm not saying that people that have cancer are not loving people. I'm saying that there are deep emotional wounds that they may not even be aware of that are driving this thing. Yes, there's going to be heavy metals involved. Yes, there's going to be parasites involved. Yes, there's going to be a pH issue going on. Yes, there's going to be things with the dental system that we're going to have to work on. But 70% of it is coming from that physical. The 30%, if we're not going to work on emotions, my mentor always said, if somebody comes in with cancer and they're not willing to work on emotions, that is not a client that you should see, because it's just going to be heartbreaking for all around. So I am lucky enough that most of my clients are willing to work, in both ways. And it's funny because, or not, it's interesting. It's interesting that when somebody comes in and they only want to work on nutrition, typically they're the person that really needs the emotional work. And when somebody only wants to come in and work on only emotions, they really need the nutritional work, right? Because we want to do the thing that's easy for us or the thing that we're most interested in. But we need both. We're substance and frequency. And if we are not working on substance and frequency, then we're only doing half the job. It's like we're only using half of the matrix, and we really need to use the whole thing. First and foremost, nutrition can help with everything. I mean, there isn't anything that's going to be made worse in your life by having a better diet and or by incorporating nutrients that are going to help you resonate at a higher level. You were talking about oils, and oils are very important and one of the most misunderstood things. We need good fat. Around every cell, I believe every cell in the body has, I know every cell in the body has a lipid around it that's like 50% fat. And, then we have like 50% protein. And so that means if I can give a person high quality oils that the body recognizes, then each cell is going to resonate higher and they can take less overall supplementation. And that's something most people don't know. The oils on the market today are a joke. The way that we're applying high heat to them, they're in non-light blocking bottles, they're infused or blended with other things. So if a lot of clients will ask me, can I eat olive oil? I mean, yes and no. Small amounts that you don't cook with, yes, if it's a true olive oil, but most olive oils are cut with canola oil, and canola oil is a neurotoxin, meaning it bursts your brain cells. We don't want to be taking in canola oil. In the beginning of this conversation, you asked, what are some things people could do? Just turning over packages and looking, does it have canola oil in it? Does it have sunflower oil in it? Then those are no, do not eat those products. We also started the conversation with me saying, get rid of refined flour, refined sugar, gluten, and dairy. So the next question I usually get is, well, what can I use as a dairy substitute? And my question back is, what are you using that dairy substitute for? What is it that you think that you need to have like some kind of milk for? And it's usually going to be because I want to put it on my cereal or I want to put it in my milk or something like that. The only one that I can really recommend at this time is Malk, M-A-L-K, because it doesn't have any oils in it. And typically I'm saying you could just eliminate it. People will ask, well, what do I put in my smoothie? Water. Like, why do we need like a fake? Because it's just sugar water. A fake milk is usually just sugar water. So why do we need that?
I was going to say, I know that oat milk is really popular right now, but it's like one thing. It's like one thing becomes popular, then all of a sudden a couple months later, it's like, actually this stuff is trash. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
Well, oat milk is literally sugar water and some kind of bad oil. If somebody wants to show me an oat milk that's other than that, awesome, bring it on. But most of it is just junk that we're adding to our body. The reason why I talk about it is because most people that are buying it because they think it's going to make them healthy. And I don't want to shame them. I don't want to make them feel bad. I just want them to know that's not an actual healthy thing. And you're spending all this money on that. And it's not good for your body. When I'm talking about a good quality oil, we're talking about something that the gallbladder can process. And as Americans, most of our gallbladders are kind of trash. Why? Because we grew up eating things like nut butters and those residues stayed in the body. We grew up eating leftovers and those molds stayed in the body.
Wait, what's wrong with nut butters?
I just had this conversation the other day with somebody and they did not
I was
love
gonna say,
it.
I'm like, I'm eating like almond butter like all the time.
Okay, so a nut butter. Let's back up. There's a reason why we have so many peanut allergies in this country, right?
Okay.
that didn't used to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up in the 50s or 60s, you did not see rampant nut allergies. You just didn't see
Yeah.
it. And so it's the food. It's what we've done to the food that now the food is becoming a poison. When you're talking about a nut butter, unfortunately, unless you make the nut butter with a raw organic nut right there at home, it's going to have mycotoxins on it. It's going to have molds that you don't see. And those are going to affect your digestion. You know, so do I ever eat a nut butter? I don't eat peanut butter, but do I ever eat a nut butter if I make it myself? And or if I do, I'm making sure I'm taking something, and I know you're familiar with, like Medicare FX with it, to bind to those molds and toxins so that my body's not absorbing them. Now, again, even just saying that kind of sounds like, is that like a lactate pill? Kind of. Meaning, am I just eating something that I know is not good for me and taking something to kind of mitigate the effects? Kind of and kind of not. Why? The lactate pill doesn't make the milk not damaging, the protein not damaging to the intestines and to the body. The Medicare FX, which is a calcium aluminum silicate, which binds to like mold and pathogens, all kinds of things, does actually bind to the mold, so the mold's not affecting my body. Okay, so it is something good to bring in, to be having with our food all the time.
To anyone that's listening that has seen me do it, that's what I put in my cocktails.
Myself as well, because I do have cocktails occasionally. And so it's going to help mitigate the effect, the toxic effect of the alcohol on your body. The other good thing is it's the only thing that I know of that binds to glyphosate, you know? So we really want to be having a little bit of it every single time we are eating food. Most foods, it's very interesting. It binds to POPs, persistent organic pollutants. And what most people don't know is maybe in the 50s or 60s, each food maybe had one persistent organic pollutant on it. So you have a plate of like 5 or 6 foods for your dinner, and you're getting like 5 or 6 different persistent organic pollutants. Now each food has about 5 to 6 persistent organic pollutants on it, which are things like pesticides, fungicides, mold, glyphosate. And so now you're having a plate where in the past you maybe had 5 or 6 persistent organic pollutants, and now you're having 30 to 35 persistent organic pollutants. We think with that toxic load, there's not a correlation to why we have so many food allergies, why we have so many digestive issues, and why our health is declining. Of course it is. The food is the most important thing. And so with every food we eat, we have to ask, are we moving towards harmony in the body or towards disharmony, towards regulation or towards dysregulation? And most people aren't thinking of food that way. Now, that doesn't mean the food can't be fun and pleasurable. It should be. We should like what we're eating. But if we're eating foods that are so processed, then our taste is going to be so distorted that natural foods don't satisfy us. So we have to work back to eating real food, and then real food becomes very pleasurable. We're salting it. We are using butter on it. And that makes food taste really good. You can use a variety of spices and herbs and all kinds of things to make real food that help you become so much healthier, And especially we want to start with our kids, because that's when it's interesting to me that parents will ask at a restaurant, does this restaurant have a kids meal? Because I just want to give my kids a kids meal. So what are parents feeding kids? Chicken nuggets, pizza, and maybe a hot dog. And you're wondering, like, this is when you're forming, right? This is when you are forming this child, when their systems are building, and you're giving them all food that's devoid of nutrients. And it's sending them on these roller coaster rides, because why don't we just finish it up with like some ice cream at the end, And then we're wondering why our kids are getting sick all the time and why our kids are not emotionally regulated. There's more to it than that, but that's a really great place to start. And what I will hear is, my kid won't eat this food, that my kid doesn't like this food. They're so different than all the other children. Well, no, all children like the taste of sugar and fat. That's innate. Of course we do. It goes back to like breast milk, which is sugar and fat, right? And what you have to do with your children is, one, honestly, the best thing to do is just start them out that way. Like, you're offering them lots of fruits and vegetables, and you're starting them eating what you're eating when they have teeth. We're not starting them eating too early, holding them for a good amount of time. I would say at least a year. And then we're bringing in food when they actually have teeth, because we were talking about wheat, right? And an interesting thing is, What are we giving babies first to eat when they don't even have teeth? We're giving them cereals, right? Like mushed cereals. What do we think we're doing with that? Why do you think we have so much wheat intolerance and different insulin issues? So like type 2 diabetes and hypoglycemia and pre-diabetic, all of this is coming from the fact that we're setting our children up before they even have the teeth to eat the food, to eat something that's spiking their insulin level. I think like table sugar, like if you were looking at the glycemic index, the base is like 55, and things below that are low glycemic, things above it are high glycemic and shoot our blood sugar up. I think table sugar is somewhere around 55. I think wheat is about 59, and that's like white bread, non-processed wheat. So if you're eating whole wheat, that's not processed, it's higher. I think it's around 69 because it's not been processed, so it has more of this starch that has been altered in it. So I'm not telling you to eat white bread, but I'm also not telling you to eat whole wheat. I'm telling you to just get rid of all of it because it's not helping you in any way, right? And what a lot of people do when they get diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic is be told to eat whole grains. And then they're consistently every year having to take more and more insulin. They're wondering, like, why am I not getting better? Well, you're not getting better because those whole grains are actually spiking, some of the whole grains are spiking your blood sugar even higher. If you wanted to eat a whole grain that possibly wouldn't do that, rye has not been altered. And some people can handle oats, some people can handle spelt. Because spelt white is like a hybridized version of wheat. It was naturally hybridized, like in the wild. So some people can handle that a lot with a lot more ease. So we're always wanting to look at like what's going on.
Well, I really appreciate all the information. As always, you always blow my mind. I kind of sit here with like my mouth hanging open, like, oh my God, she's so smart. So I know that everyone is probably going to want to know more about you. And so if people do want to come and see you, and if they're not located in Massachusetts, can they still benefit from your services?
100%. All of my services are offered in office. I have two offices, one in Newburyport and one in Amesbury, Massachusetts. And all of them are offered by remotely. So if you are not in the Massachusetts area, most of my clients do drive a couple hours to see me. I have a lot of clients in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Maine, Vermont. So if you're not in a couple of hours drive of me, we can do remote sessions. And some people that are local do remote sessions as well. So reach out to me and we will give you the options there, see what's really a good fit for you. I would do work through something called Evox, and that might be the option for you. I do work through a variety of different means. So we will see what you're actually looking for and how we would do that. But yes, everything's offered in-house. And I'd say at least half of my clients I've never met in person, remotely.
Yeah. So if someone does want to come and see you, are there things that they can do or should do to prepare?
Well, to prepare to see me, I don't know if that's quite the right word, but what I would say is before you even go to see anybody, there are things that you can do on your own to get your health to a place that you would really like, which means focusing on bringing in that fiber, bringing in produce, which is the fiber, bringing in good quality proteins, bringing in high quality fat, looking at your sleep schedule. One of the best things you could do to help get the circadian rhythms really locked in is to get up at the same time every morning, regardless of what time you went to bed. I'd like you to go to bed around the same time every night as well, but let's not sleep in just because we went to bed late. For the most part, if you need to take a nap later in the day, that's great. Go ahead and do that. I don't want you to skimp on sleep. Sleep is so incredibly important. Most people that are dealing with any kind of sleep issue, it actually is rooted in your digestion and or emotions, maybe a few other things. So we would look at that. But if you can sleep and you do sleep well, please do so. So sleep, getting the food on track, introducing exercise, phenomenal. Getting yourself to go outside and getting sunlight. The more sunlight you get in the day, the better off you're going to be, especially if you're getting it through the ocular lens. So without sunglasses, without contacts, without a pair of regular glasses. For some people, they really can't see that well without those things. So even just getting outside and sitting, so I want you to fall down and hurt yourself, and you're getting that sunlight in through your ocular lens. So hydration with salt, getting that food intake to really be whole food based, exercising, sleep, and getting outside. You start taking care of those things, and then let's add in supplementation. Then let's start detoxing. Then let's look at all the different systems in the body. But if most people would get that sunlight, they'd get that sleep, and they would eat whole food based diet, they would be so far ahead of most people. And while it's not a competition, we do want to live this life that feels good, right? We all want to age with grace. We want to be living a long life, but a long life in which we're fully functioning and we look and feel good. I don't want to be old and not able to go hiking. I don't want to be old and not able to play with or older and not able to play with my grandkids just as well as I could play with them today. So we want to get those lifestyle things dialed in. And then, let's start working. Let's start working on detoxing. Let's start working on rejuvenating. Let's start working on balancing those hormones to give you the most optimal health that you can possibly have.
Brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Such good information. I know I'm going to have you on a million more times because every time you open your mouth, I'm like, I want to ask her about that. I want to ask you about like sun and everything. So
excellent. We can talk about so many things. We can talk about, see what people want to talk about.
for sure.
We can talk about any health issue. We can dial things in on just intermittent fasting, just on exercise, just on just about anything and expand it, because that's what people really want to know. Like what is usable information?
Right. Well, okay. Oh my gosh. I mean, obviously I'll let you know the feedback on this because I know we can dive deeper on anything. So thank you for your time. And until next time, everyone out there, stay brilliant.